Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's that time of the year again. The Knicks are back in the NBA playoffs. Sixth time in my 23 years on this earth. I'm not taking it for granted. My name is Bryce Gelman. Going to be breaking down Knicks-Sixers, a series in which the NBA is probably extremely happy about right now. Who would have thought that this would be the series with the Knicks as the 2 seed and the Sixers at the 7th? But of course, the Sixers were missing Joel Embiid for the majority of that second half of the season. They are a great basketball team with Joel Embiid, as you could predict with the former MVP from last year. So this is shaping up to be an extremely hard-nosed, defensive-minded, physical series between two teams with a lot of talent, two teams that are relatively top-heavy, with Joel Embiid and Jalen Brunson being far and away the best players in the series, followed by Maxey, I think is definitely in the second tier, and then OG Anunoby. But this will be a series in which the Knicks, and right now it's kind of even on DraftKings, FanDuel, wherever you get your odds. Started out with the Sixers favored, but I think more money came in on the Knicks because when you really look at these two teams, the matchup between these two teams, the Knicks shape up relatively well. I mean, they're 3-1 of the season series. The one game that Embiid played out of those 4 games, the Knicks won decisively. I understand that it was in early January. The Knicks had Julius Randle. Randle went 1 for 11 with 8 points in that game. The Knicks, they won that game by 30-plus points. Embiid had 30, 10, and 3, and he was a negative 30. And that was Joel Embiid's worst plus-minus in any game against the Knicks in his career. This is a different Knicks team. This is a different culture behind this Knicks team. This Knicks team has a completely different mindset, even from the Knicks team from last year. So I think that this is shaping up to be an extremely exciting series, a nerve-wracking series if you're a Knicks fan. The fact that you drew the Sixers and you were only 1 or 2 plays away from the Miami Heat potentially without Jimmy Butler, it's been reported that he has an MCL injury. It would have been great to get payback on the Miami Heat if you're the New York Knicks, but it wasn't meant to be. And as Dante DiVincenzo has said, the Knicks weren't ducking any smoke, and they're certainly not going to be ducking smoke facing the Philadelphia 76ers, who are probably a top 3 team in the Eastern Conference with a healthy Joel Embiid throughout the season. So it's just the luck of the draw. It is what it is. The Knicks are still going to come out. They're going to compete. They're going to play with that fire that they've been playing with throughout this regular season. But there are multiple keys to success for this Knicks team in this series. And when you look at the matchups from top to bottom, I think the number one thing the Knicks have to look to do is to wear down Joel Embiid. If you watched the play-in game last night against the Miami Heat for the 76ers, Joel Embiid is nowhere near 100%. I mean, he's lucky if he's at 75 right now. And that's kind of what you have to expect from Joel Embiid every year going into the playoffs. He's never at 100%. It's his knee, it's his ankle, it's his foot, whatever you may have it, Joel Embiid is not going to be 100%, and he's certainly not right now. The Knicks have this unbelievable front court depth with Isaiah Hartenstein and Mitchell Robinson, each one of them bringing their own positives to the floor, each one of them being near the top of the NBA in their respective ways that they contribute to the team, the way they contribute on the court. And they've got Precious Achiuwa, a guy that may not see many minutes, but you know you're going to – Tom Thibodeau, you call him out on the bench. He comes into the game. You know what he could provide off the bench. So you're going to have to play a lot of pick and roll ball. You're going to have to slow it down when you got to slow it down, but then you're going to have to play with pace. You're going to have to race up the floor because if Embiid's running back and forth for 40-plus minutes a game, there's no way, and I mean no way, that the 76ers win this series. You need to get Joel Embiid moving, specifically in the pick and roll. Let them play their drop coverage. Let Jalen Brunson facilitate in the mid-range. Let him find the open man, whatever you may have it. Jalen Brunson, I think, in the pick and roll with Hartenstein and with Mitchell Robinson, that is going to be key to getting Embiid off his game, to get him at the point where he's the wear and tear is the naked eye. You could see it. So I think that this series will come down to whether or not Joel Embiid looks healthy, whether or not the Knicks can exploit his weaknesses, whether or not they could get into the paint, whether or not they could force other guys to beat the Knicks besides Embiid. We know what he brings. He's a walking bucket. He's a walking 30 points, 10 rebounds. That's who he is. He's the MVP. But what do those other guys bring you? And I want to bring up what happened last night against the Miami Heat, because the only reason the Sixers won that game is because of what Nicholas Batum did in the fourth quarter. I'm not discrediting who Nicholas Batum is. He's a solid 3-and-D guy. When he's hitting shots, he could be even more of a factor like we saw last night. But if the Sixers need Nicholas Batum to put 20-plus points up each game against the Knicks, they are not winning this series because that's not happening. It's once in a blue moon. It was a season high in points. He did it. He was hitting every three that he got, every open three. He was locking down Tyler Hero on the other end. That was a fluke. It's not going to happen again. You're going to have to look for those other guys in the Sixers to beat you. You're going to have to look for Tobias Harris to put up 25 points per game. We know he likes playing in the Garden. It's home for him. He grew up in Long Island. You're going to have to look to Kelly Oubre to beat you. But other than that, it kind of gets a little thin in terms of the depth that the Sixers have. Like, where realistically can the Sixers beat the Knicks with the backup units in the game? Do the Sixers have a guy like Miles McBride who can come in and reasonably play 35 minutes? He won't because OG Anunoby's back. But where do the Sixers beat the Knicks? When you look at the matchups from top to bottom, they beat you with your stars, with their stars. They beat you with Embiid. They beat you with Maxey. Everywhere else, I think the Knicks have an advantage. And Mitchell Robinson should rain down terror on Joel Embiid and the Philadelphia 76ers if he's even near 100%. The Knicks have to crash the offensive glass with as much intensity as they did against the Cleveland Cavaliers in the first round series last year. And you got to be smart and can't send Joel Embiid to the foul line 15 times in a game because that's where they beat you as well. Play with your feet. Don't check him. Let him get what he needs to get in the mid-range. If he's hitting his shots, fine. Joel Embiid is going to get his, just like Jalen Brunson is going to get his on the other end. So another thing you look for in a key to victory is who is going to guard Jalen Brunson? You think Tyrese Maxey is going to be able to keep up with him? You think Nicholas Batum can keep up with Jalen Brunson? I don't think so. I think the Knicks have a major mismatch when it comes to Jalen Brunson being on the floor. He's been scoring against everything that you throw at him. If you watch the Celtics game from last week in which the Knicks decisively beat them, they were throwing the kitchen sink at him. They have arguably the best perimeter guard defender in the league in Jrue Holiday. He wasn't able to do anything. Then they threw Jason Tatum on him. Then they threw Jaylen Brown on him. And Brunson would beat one guy, get the other guy on him, and still somehow get into the paint and maneuver his way to scoring a basket. Jalen Brunson is inevitable. And yes, they are going to throw a lot of double teams on him, just like we saw in the Lakers game a couple of months back after Randall and Anunoby got hurt. The Knicks will need one guy to step up and hit shots. Now, I've been saying this for weeks, that this would be the biggest X factor going into a playoff series for the Knicks, but it's even more true now. And that guy is Bojan Bogdanovic. And Bojan, this past week, saw someone for his left wrist. Supposedly, he's got a sprain that he's been playing through with that left wrist, but he will play. He's going to tough it out because that's the type of mentality that this team has. They play through injury and they show up for their teammates. The Knicks are going to need Bojan Bogdanovic to show up for his teammates because the Knicks have one major shot creator, and that's Jalen Brunson. Yes, Dante DiVincenzo could step up, hit 5-6 threes in a game. Yes, he could sometimes create his shot off the dribble. Yes, he can get to the basket off the dribble. But the one guy on the Knicks, besides Jalen Brunson, who is known as a shot creator, is, you guessed it, Bojan Bogdanovic. A guy in which the Knicks traded for, a guy who averaged 20-plus points per game. He's a walking bucket. He has not panned out to be what the Knicks wanted him to be when they made that trade with the Detroit Pistons, along with Alec Burks. But Bojan Bogdanovic plays. He's still in the rotation because I think Tom Thibodeau is entirely clear in his mind of what Bojan Bogdanovic brings on the offensive end. And I think when now, you got OG Anunoby back. When you play the two of them, Bojan is a lot more efficient because he's not as much of a liability on the defensive end with Anunoby covering up all of his mistakes. So Bojan needs to show out. The Knicks will be in such a good position if Bojan Bogdanovic is playing at least even close to what he was playing at with the Pistons. I understand there was more volume there. I understand he had more shot attempts, more looks in the game, more minutes played. You are going to need to be efficient if you want your team to win. So let's talk predictions. And I've had a lot of discourse with some of my Sixers fan friends, and they are very confident in their team to come out and win, and they really wanted the Knicks over the Celtics. I mean, obviously, Paul Reed said it today. He put it bluntly. We wanted the Knicks. We didn't want Boston. As Dante DiVincenzo said, bring it on. We want the smoke. So let's talk predictions. Because Sixers fan friends, they think that the Sixers will win this series convincingly. I got the Knicks in 6. I think over a long series, if the Sixers aren't able to get one of two at the Garden in the first 2 games, the Sixers will have a very hard time winning this series. Is Wells Fargo Center really a home court advantage for the Sixers, specifically this year? I don't think so. I really don't think so. I think it's just an extension of MSG. Knicks fans travel well. Every time the Knicks have played in Philly, at least 30% of the fans are Knicks fans. So that's going to be a factor. The Knicks are going to have a much bigger home court advantage at the Garden than the Sixers will have at Wells Fargo. So I think getting those 2 first games in the series, establishing that home court advantage, like the Garden has finally turned out to be. One of my biggest things with the Garden and the Knicks and their home court advantage was the fact that every time opposing teams stepped onto the court, and we saw this, it still reigns true. I mean, we saw this a couple of weeks ago with SGA and that the buzzer beater, the game winner that he hit, is every time a star opposing player steps on the court, they turn into prime Michael Jordan. Hitting shots left and right, buzzer beaters at the end of quarters, buzzer beaters to end the game, career highs. They love playing at the Garden. They love the spotlight. But this has turned into a different story this year. The Knicks are a much better home team than they were in previous years. They finally have that home court advantage. The defense chants really help when you've got a good defense, when you've got OG Anunoby, when you've got the lockdown guys that they have, when you've Deuce McBride checking up against your favorite player's favorite player on the opposing team. So let's talk about what the Knicks can do at Wells Fargo Center. I think the Knicks win 1 of 2 of those first games. They go into Wells Fargo Center. The Sixers will have that push, and they'll look at this in terms of our season's about to end, potentially on our home court. So Joel Embiid is going to put together some magnificent performances. The Knicks are going to have to minimize the damage from the other guys on the court. You got to let Joel Embiid get his. He's inevitable. Just like Jalen Brunson's inevitable, just like at some point the Sixers are just going to give up and let Brunson get his. The Knicks are going to have to let Joel Embiid get his. But you have to wear him down. At that point, if the Knicks are up in the series, as I mentioned before, you got to play the pick and roll. Pick and roll till they die. You got to increase the pace. You got to run up the court when you need to. When Joel Embiid looks like he's reeling, you got to get him in a place where he's run down and he can't play 40-plus minutes in the game because we know what the Sixers are without him. We know what the Knicks are without Jalen Brunson. But Jalen Brunson has proven time and time again that he does not feel susceptible to that wear and tear, that he could play 40-plus minutes in a game, not get hurt, still go out there and put together awesome performances down the stretch of each game, even though he's playing 35-plus minutes per game. So I think this all comes down to whether or not the Knicks are able to defend home court, whether or not the Knicks are able to stop Joel Embiid getting to the free throw line and then letting him get his without fouling him a million times per game, and what type of whistle Jalen Brunson gets. I think a lot of fans, Knicks fans in particular, are going to be absolutely infuriated if we watch what we've been watching over the 82-game stretch of the season. Jalen Brunson does not get calls that most superstars get in the NBA. And we are going to see that, even though, I hold out hope that it's not the case, but we're going to see it. We know it. Objectively, Joel Embiid will get more calls than Jalen Brunson. The Knicks, as they have in the past, will continue to roll with the punches and continue to play their game. And if you get fouled, you run up the court, whatever. It is what it is. If you miss the shot, okay, fine. Jalen Brunson does not flip out at officials. He's very mature with that. I don't think he's gotten a technical this year. He is that mature guy and someone who is respected, I'm sure, by officials, but at the same time, he's still not getting those calls. Whatever. I digress. The Knicks will win this series in 6. And if they don't, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. But that'll do it for this quick preview. Again, I'll probably do a live stream on Saturday. I know this wasn't really much, but this is just getting my thoughts out there. I know it's 2 days before the Knicks have today and tomorrow before their play on Saturday at the Garden at 6. Going to be excited for that one. Let's hope the Knicks can get past this first round, because if they can, it should be an easier second-round matchup. The Pacers have fared very well against the Bucks this year. So maybe the Pacers might be able to knock off the Bucks without Giannis Antetokounmpo, or a Giannis Antetokounmpo at less than 100%. We'll see how that goes. And then you got the Celtics in the conference finals. If that happens, it'll be the first Knicks conference finals that they've made since 1999. So looking forward to that. But first, you got to get past the Sixers. So we'll see what happens. But let's go Knicks. This is an exciting time. Hope the Garden is rocking on Saturday. If you're there, if you're going, enjoy, have fun, root for our Knicks, and let's see what happens. All right, that'll do it. I'm Bryce Gelman. See you all later on this week or next week.